Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy. We're reading the Meditations of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antonius, translated by George Long. And this is Meditation 10. Meditation 10, number 1. Wilt thou then, my soul, never be good and simple and one and naked, more manifest than the body which surrounds thee? Don't forget who Marcus is talking to in these meditations, right? He's talking to himself. And when you read these meditations, you should read them and talk to yourself. So his first sentence here, what my soul, won't you be good and simple and naked and more manifest, more important than the body? Wilt thou never enjoy an affectionate and contented disposition? Wilt thou never be full and without a want of any kind, longing for nothing more, nor desiring anything, either animate or inanimate, for the enjoyment of pleasures? Nor yet desiring time, wherein thou shalt have longer enjoyment, or place, or pleasant climate, or society of men with whom thou mayest live in harmony? But wilt thou be satisfied with thy present condition, and pleased with all that is about thee? And wilt thou convince thyself that thou hast everything, and that it comes from the gods, and that everything is well for thee, and will be well, whatever shall please them, gods, and whatever they shall give for the conversation of the perfect living being? George has a footnote here. He says that is God, and he is defined by Zeno, but the confusion between gods and God is strange. We're going to talk about that footnote in a minute. The good and the just and the beautiful, which generate and holds together all things and contains and embraces all things which are dissolved for the production of other like things. Wilt thou never be such that thou shalt so dwell in a community with gods and men as neither to find fault with them at all, nor to be condemned by them? It's a very interesting first meditation of number 10. Jimmy put a subtitle here, Yearning. Oh, geez, I wish I had more money. Oh, geez, I wish I could be healthier. Oh, geez. You know, we moan a lot, don't we? And he's talking to himself here. Quit moaning. Aren't you ever going to be happy with what you have? And then this footnote, George says the confusion between gods and gods is strange. It's not strange. It's not. It runs throughout the meditations. Remember, it's all well and good to consider critics, to consider translator notes like George, who's, by the way, is an excellent translator. This is probably one of the best editions of the meditations that I chose to read with you. But in any case, I don't think there's a confusion in here, because Marcus is talking, whether he's talking about plural gods, singular God, providence, he's talking about something greater than himself, which some people in this day and age tend to forget, that there's something greater than yourself. But Marcus seems to know that intuitively, doesn't he? Good. Don't forget, if you have questions about any of these meditations, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Number 2, observe what thy nature requires, so far as thou art governed by, and remember the thous and the these and the those. He's writing in Greek, classical Greek, which George translates appropriately. But if you want to, ease it a little bit, you can change thou to you. Observe what your nature requires, so far as you are governed by nature only. But we're going to read it the original way, right? Observe what thy nature requires, so far as thou art governed by nature only, and then do it. and accept it. If thy nature, so far as thou art a living being, shall not be made worse by it. Reminds me of the original Nike, when Nike first burst on the scene. Just do it. And next thou must observe what thy nature requires so far as thou art a living being. In all this thou mayst allow thyself, if thy nature, so far as thou art a rational animal, shall not be made worse by it. What's it? By whatever you're doing. But the rational animal is consequently also a political animal. Use these rules then and trouble thyself about nothing else. So I titled this Rules, gives you some rules. Observe what nature requires, blah, 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 and then just do it, right? Next, observe what it requires as a living being, and then just do it. And all of thy nature so far as a rational animal, and as long as you're not made worse by it, what? Just do it. George's parentheses here, he's putting in the word social. That's his, remember the brackets, not parentheses, pardon me. The brackets are George's brackets, not Marcus Aurelius's brackets. George wants us to really realize that what he means by political is social, not just politician, social. According to Marcus Aurelius, man is a social being. Number 3, everything which happens either happens in such a wise as thou art formed by nature to bear it, or thou art not formed by nature to bear it. So everything that happens, you're formed by nature to bear it or not. That's his premise here. If then it happens to thee in such a way as thou art formed by nature to bear it, do not complain, but bear it, as thou art formed by nature to bear it. But if it happens in such a wise as thou art not formed by nature to bear it, don't complain, for it will perish after it has consumed thee. The guy is unbelievable, isn't he? So we're either formed by nature to bear what happens to us or we're not. So if we're formed by nature to bear these things that happen to us, shut up, right? Because we're formed by nature to bear it. But if it happens such a way as thou art not, so if we're not formed by nature to bear it, shut up. For it will perish after it's consumed thee, right? Remember, however, that thou art formed by nature to bear everything, with respect to which it depends on thy own opinion to make it endurable and tolerable, by thinking that it is either thy interest or thy duty to do this. So everything that's happening to you, because it's nature is dictating this, you are by nature shaped to bear it. So shut up. Interesting, isn't it? That's what he calls opinion. Opinions of things shape our thoughts and often lead us astray. That's why in the meditations he tells us to do away with forget your opinion. Shut up. I don't know what the Greek word for shut up is. I wish I did. Number 4. Maybe I'll look it up. Number 4. If a man is mistaken, instruct him kindly and show him his error. But if thou art not able, blame yourself and blame not even thyself. Or blame not even thyself. So if somebody's wrong, correct them. But if you're not able to correct them, blame yourself or don't blame yourself. Interesting. Number 5. Whatever may happen to thee, it was prepared for thee from all eternity. And the implication of causes was from eternity spinning the thread of thy being. and of that which is incident to it. So Jimmy titled this Fate, Destiny. Do you believe in destiny? Do you believe in fate, that things are preordained to have happened to you and that you're just carrying it through? This is a very interesting question. I've got to mark that because we want to get back to that sometime. Fate, destiny. Or can you change your destiny? Or do you have to accept your destiny? What do you think? Number 6, whether the universe is atoms or nature, let this first be established, that I am part of the whole which is governed by nature. And next, I am in a manner intimately related to the parts, which are of the same kind of myself. For remembering this, that I'm a part of nature, inasmuch as I am a part, I shall be discontented with none of the things which are assigned to me out of the whole. For nothing is injurious to the part if it is for the advantage of the whole. Isn't that interesting? So he's saying, you're not going to be discontented if you realize this thought here that you're part of a system. For the whole contains nothing which is not for its advantage. And all natures indeed have this common principle, but the nature of the universe has this principle besides, that it cannot be compelled, even by any external cause, to generate anything harmful to itself. Jimmy put a arrow there. I want you to think about that. You're part of nature. Nature cannot injure itself. So if you feel like you're being injured and you're a part of nature, it's for a good reason, right? It's part. So you're either atoms or you're nature. The universe is either this or that. By remembering then that I am a part of such a whole, look how he argues with himself, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, these are meditations. And he didn't have what we quote unquote have, right? Science. Yeah, right. Science. Remembering that I am part of such a whole, I shall be content with everything that happens. And inasmuch, this is so hard to do, isn't it? Remembering that I'm part of the whole, I shall be content with everything that happens. This is so hard to do when suddenly you find yourself suffering from something. It's very hard to remember you're part of the whole and that your suffering may indeed be for a good reason. That's impossible, Jimmy. What the heck are you talking about? If I'm suffering, how does that help anybody? Well, we're going to talk about that. I want you to think about this. This is very important. Why is it important? Well, first of all, because this is a guy, he's an emperor, very educated guy, way back when, thinking these things through. He's trying to think these things through. And he has none of the advantages you and I have. He didn't study science. He didn't study chemistry. He didn't study physics. He's thinking this through on his own. And look at his conclusions. And you don't have to accept them as gospel, far from it. But it should make you think. Remember, Albert Camus said, it's not the soundness of the argument that's important. It's that it makes you think. I have yet to read a meditation in the meditations we've been reading by Marcus that doesn't make me think. Now, you may dismiss some of them. That's BS, Jimmy. I'm going on. I don't believe this crap. That's your right. You can do that. But I'm telling you, if you do that, you're missing the point of classical literature. Classical literature is here. I chose this book because it's classical literature. What makes it a classic is the deep, deep thinking that Marcus Aurelius did about life. It's not all about, the World Series. I hate to tell you that. The World Series is going to be over. And then life is going to go on. The football games this weekend are going to be over. And life's going to go on. Or it won't. Or it won't. And inasmuch as I am in a manner intimately related to the parts which are of the same kind with myself, I shall do nothing unsocial, but I shall rather direct myself to the things which are of the same kind with myself, and I shall turn all my efforts to the common interest and divert them from the contrary. Don't forget, he's the emperor, right? Now, if these things are done so, life must flow on happily. Just as thou must observe that the life of a citizen is happy, who continues a course of action which is advantageous to his fellow citizens, and is content with whatever the state may assign him. It's very important to always think in the back of your mind when you're reading this that he's the emperor. Now, when you write your meditations, you're not the emperor, or are you? Are you the king of your castle and the queen of your castle? Right? You're the boss. It's your life. So when you think about this number 6 of meditation number 10, this is one of the most profound thoughts in these they're all profound. I don't even know why I keep saying it's one of the most profound. When they're all profound, heavens to Murgatroyd. Number 7. The parts of the whole, everything, I mean, which is naturally comprehended in the universe, must of necessity perish. But let this be understood in this sense, that they must undergo change. But if this is naturally both an evil and a necessity for the parts, well, then the whole would not continue to exist in a good condition. The parts being subject to change and constituted so as to perish in various ways. For whether did nature herself design to do evil to the things which are parts of herself, and to make them subject to evil, and of necessity fall into evil, or have such results happen without her knowing it? Does evil happen because nature is destined, is doing this, or does it just happen without nature knowing it? Evil. The word, ladies and gentlemen, the operative word is evil. Now, Marcus doesn't define it, but he does define it. Is evil perishing? All things must perish, but they're just changing. And things don't change without nature knowing or willing the change. It may seem evil, continue to exist in a good condition. The part may subject to change, for whether did nature herself design to do evil to the things? Evil. Both these suppositions are incredible. See how he argues with himself? But if a man should ever even drop the term nature and should speak of these things as natural, forget, don't even talk nature, just say they're natural. Even then, it would be ridiculous to affirm at the same time that the parts of the whole are in their nature subject to change, and at the same time be surprised or vexed as if something were happening contrary to nature, particularly as the dissolution of things is into those things of which each thing is composed. Lots of things in there. That's George the Translator, right? George the Translator. Think about this. It would be ridiculous, even if you don't say nature did this, if it's just natural that things change. It's stupid to be surprised or angry if something happens contrary to nature. It looks like it's contrary to nature, but it's not. The dissolution of things, right, is into those things of which each thing is composed. Don't forget, Carl Sagan, we are the stuff stars are made of. This is just material, this body we have. For there is either a dispersion, watch his arguments, For there either is a dispersion of the elements out of which everything has been compounded, dispersion, or a change from the solid to the earthy and from the airy to the aerial, so that these parts are taken back into the universal reason, whether this is at certain periods is consumed by fire or renewed by eternal changes. And do not imagine that the solid and the airy part belong to you from the time of generation. For this, all this received its exuration, its beginnings, only yesterday and the day before. And one may say from the food and the air, which is inspired. This, then, which has received changes, not that which thy mother brought forth, but suppose that this implicates thee, you, very much with that other part, which has the peculiar quality. This is nothing, in fact, in the way of objection to what is being said. And then George has got a footnote. I purposely did not read the brackets. Why? Do you know why? If you've been reading with me now, this is the 10th meditation, you know why I'm not reading what's between those brackets. Email me, jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com if you know the answer. There may be a prize for you. In any case, the answer is these are George's brackets. And George is giving you these brackets to help you, in his opinion, to understand what he's saying because of this footnote. The end of this section is perhaps corrupt, and the meaning is obscure. Is it? Is the meaning of what he's saying here obscure? Or is he just being consistent with his philosophy that everything changes? Everything changes, constantly changes, and it just regurgitates itself back into some material form. All things are a-flowing. I'm not saying you got to believe it. I'm just saying it's not that difficult to understand, even if the section is corrupt. You can read what George says here if you want. The emperor here maintains that the essential part of man is unchangeable, and that the other parts, if they change or perish, do not affect that which really constitutes man. Then he refers to what he wrote about the philosophy. But he doesn't say, I didn't read anything in here, did you, that man is unchangeable. The essential part of man, the soul, is unchangeable. You know, he talks about the soul, but he doesn't talk about the soul here, does he? Does he? Email me. Number 8. When thou hast assumed these names, good, modest, true, rational, a man of equanimity and magnanimous, take care that thou dost not change these names. Definitions is the title of this meditation. So important, defining your words. And Marcus comes out with this great statement. When thou hast assumed these names, when you're using these names, what names? Good, modest, true. Take care that thou dost not change these names, change the meaning. And if thou should, connotation and denotation. Surprised I didn't write that down. We'll talk about that in a second. And if thou shouldst lose them, quickly return to them. And remember that the term rational has intended to signify a discriminating attention to every several thing and freedom from negligence. And that he's defining the words for you. Equanimity is the voluntary acceptance of the things which are assigned to thee by the common nature. And that magnanimity is the elevation of the intelligent part above the pleasurable and painful sensations of the flesh, and above that poor thing called fame and death and all such things, magnanimous. And if then thou maintainest thyself in the possession of these names, good, modest, true, rational, a man of equanimity, magnanimous. So if you maintain yourself with these names, without desiring to be called by these names by others, oh, how good he is. Oh, how magnanimous he is. Thou wilt be another person and will enter on another life. For to continue to be such as thou hast hitherto been, and to be torn in pieces and defiled in such a life, is the character of a very stupid man, and one over fond of his life, and like those half-devoured fighters with wild beasts, who, though covered with wounds and gore, they still entreat to be kept to the following day. Please let me fight again, though they will be exposed in the same state to the same claws and the same bites. He's got a footnote here to look at Seneca. Seneca was a great writer on these exhibitions which amused people, the gladiators, right? And whatever. These fighters were bestari, some of whom may have been criminals. But even if they were exhibition, he's talking about the games, right? The games. Therefore, fix thyself in a possession of these few names. And if thou art able to abide in them, abide as if thou once removed certain islands of the happy. And here's a long footnote. As if you were removed to the islands of the happy. What's that? Well, the islands are spoken of by Greek and Roman writers. George, when you read this, George will tell you there's probably nothing like, they don't know where the islands of the happy are, but it comes from the Odyssey. Jimmy's going to read that one, if he hasn't read it already on the website, the Odyssey. But if thou shalt perceive that thou fallest out of them, out of the names, and dost not maintain thy hold on them, go courageously into some nook where thou shalt maintain them, or even depart at once from life, not in passion, but with simplicity and freedom and modesty, after doing this one thing, at least in thy life, to have gone out of it thus. This is an important statement. If you can't keep these names, if you lose these names, suddenly you find yourself, you're lost. He says, find a nook. Go find a nook so you'll be able to maintain them. Put yourself away in a room and get these back. Or depart at once from life. Just end it all. If you can't do this, end it all. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying Marcus is saying it. In order, however, the remembrance of these names, it will greatly help thee if thou rememberest the gods. Right? And then I put a little footnote here on what he's talking about with the games. Remember the gods, and that they wish not to be flattered, but wish all reasonable beings to be made like themselves. And if thou rememberest what does the work of a fig tree is a fig tree, and that what does the work of a dog is a dog, and that what does the work of a bee is a bee, and that what does the work of a man is a man. We were looking at the news the other day, and we were contemplating the actions of somebody on the news. and I told my wife, because I had already prepared this meditation to read to you, with you. And I told my wife, why would you expect a fig tree not to act like a fig tree? Sorry. Right? Why would you expect someone to act, if they're a fig tree, not act like a fig tree? Anyway, number 9. Mimi, number 1. And he's got here, hatred is a place of mimi, Roman plays in which action and gesticulation were nearly all. Drama, war, astonishment, torpor, slavery, they will daily wipe out those holy principles of thine. You see you see that first sentence, how important that is? He's saying when you look at all this stuff, it's going to wipe your principles that he's just been talking about. How many things, without studying nature, dost thou imagine? And how many dost thou neglect? There's a footnote here, and he says, this is corrupt. And then he refers to another translator, which we're not going to get into. We don't care about that. We're looking at George. How many things without studying nature dost thou imagine, and how many do you neglect? But it is your duty to look on and so to do everything, and that at the same time the power of dealing with circumstances is perfected. You have to practice. And the contemplative faculty is exercised. You have to be thinking about these things. And the confidence which comes from the knowledge of each several thing is maintained without showing it, but not yet concealed. So you don't show people you're studying, you just study stuff. And when wilt thou enjoy simplicity? When gravity, and when the knowledge of every several thing, both what it is in its substance and what place it has in the universe, and how long it is formed to exist, and what things it is compounded, and to whom it can belong, and who are able both to give it and to take it away. I titled this Knowing because that's what he's talking about. It's up to each of us to look around us, study the things around us, and know them for what they are. Value. There's another word I could have put down. Value. What is the value of what I'm looking at? Number 10. A spider is proud when it caught a fly, and another when he has caught a poor hare, and another when he has taken a little fish in the net, and another when he has taken wild boars, and another when he has taken bears, and another when he has taken Samaritans. Are not these robbers, if you examine their opinions? So I titled this Motive. Starts with the spider, ends up with Samaritans. Marcus, this is a footnote. Let's read this just for a moment. Marcus, this is George. Marcus means to say that conquerors are robbers. He himself warred against Samaritans, and he was a robber, as he says, like the rest. But compare the life of Avidius Cassius. He's making a comparison here. I don't know. I don't know if that's what Marcus is saying. Marcus means to say, who is George? George Long is a fantastic translator, but who the hell is he to say what Marcus means? You're the one who has to decide what Marcus means. What does he mean by this? Robbers. A spider is a robber when he catches a fly. Another when he catches a hare, like a fox, and another when he has taken a little fish in a net, a fisherman, and another when he has taken wild boars, hunters, and another when he has taken bears, hunters, and another when he has taken Samaritans, when he fights wars and kills barbarians. Are not these robbers, if you examine their opinions? Don't forget what's an opinion. He doesn't like opinions. We're supposed to divorce ourselves of opinions. Does the spider have an opinion when he kills a fly? Does a fox have an opinion when he kills a rabbit? I don't think so. Rational beings have opinions, but Marcus tells us to get rid of the opinions, right? But he's saying that we're robbers. What's a robber? Someone who steals. He's got a point, doesn't he? He says conquerors are robbers. I don't know. We're all robbers in a sense, aren't we? What are you robbing today? I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Pardon me. That's good coffee. Number 11, acquire the contemplative way of seeing how all things change into one another and constantly attend to it, and exercise thyself about this part. There's George's brackets again. For nothing is so much adapted to produce magnanimity, nothing, or generosity, if you think about these things. Such a man has put off the body, and he sees that he must, no one knows how soon, go away from among other men and leave everything here. He gives himself up entirely to just doing in all his actions. And in everything else that happens, he resigns himself to the universal nature. Just do it and resign yourself to everything else. Isn't that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's mark. But as to what any man shall say or think about him, you, or do against him, you, he never thinks of it, being himself contented with these two things. Hyphen, right? We like the hyphens because there's a pause. He's arguing with himself. With acting justly in what he does, what he now does, and being satisfied with what he now is assigned to him. Acting justly and being satisfied. And he lays aside all distracting and busy pursuits and desires nothing else than to accomplish. Jimmy titled this, contemplation. Desires nothing else than to accomplish the straight course through the law. And by accomplishing the straight course, to follow God. There's the singular God again with the capital G. He's got a footnote here. By law, Marcus means the divine law, obedience to the will of God. That's still an interesting statement. Because I guess it depends if you admire a God through the course of law. Is it man's law or God's law? Number 12, what need is there of suspicious fear, since it is in thy power to inquire what ought to be done? And if thou seest clear, go by this way content, without turning back. But if you don't see clear, stop and take the best advisers. But if any other thing opposes thee, go on according to thy powers with due consideration, keeping to that which appears to be just. For it is best to reach this object, and if thou dost fail, let thy failure be in attempting this. He who follows reason in all things is both tranquil and active at the same time, and also cheerful and collected. I title this How to Live. If you understand this meditation, number 12, in the 10th meditation, you understand how to live, right? If there's suspicion, what need is, there's nothing to fear, since it is in thy power to inquire what ought to be done. Why should you be afraid of anything when you have the ability, the power to ask what should be done? What should be done? And if you ask that question and you see clear, do it. But if you don't see clear, ask advice. How simple can that be? How many times have you asked people for advice? Or have you? Or do you know everything? I have a saying, clients who know everything, we can't tell them anything because they know everything. Number 13, inquire of thyself as soon as thou wakest from sleep whether it will make any difference to you if another does what is just and right. So he says, when you wake up, ask yourself, is it going to make any difference to you? It will make no difference. It's a powerful statement. You get up, you ask yourself, it will make a difference if another does what is just and right? No, it won't make a difference. Don't forget who he is. He's the emperor, right? Thou hast forgotten, I suppose, that those who assume arrogant airs in bestowing their praise or blame on others are such as they are at bed and at board, and thou hast not forgotten what they do and what they avoid, and what they pursue and how they steal and how they rob, not with hands and feet, but with their most valuable part, their soul, by means of which there is produced, when a man chooses, fidelity, modesty, truth, law, a good demon. A good demon. And George says happiness. He thinks it's happiness. The good demon. The good witch. Interesting. Number 14, to her who gives and takes back all, to nature. The man who is instructed and modest says, give what thou wilt, take back what thou wilt. And he says this not proudly, but obediently, and well pleased with her. Suddenly nature is a female, right? Her. 15. Short is the little which remains to thee of life. Live as on a mountain, for it makes no difference whether a man lives there or here. If he lives everywhere in the world, as in a state, let men see, let them know, a real man lives according to nature. If they cannot endure him, let them kill him, for that is better than to live thus. How to live. 16. No longer talk at all about the kind of man that is a good man ought to be, but just be such. Just do it. There it is again. Quit talking about what kind of man. Just good man. Just do it. Just be a good man. 17. Constantly contemplate the whole of time and the whole of substance, and consider that all individual things, as to substance, are a grain of a fig, and as to time, the turning of a gimlet. All things are flowing, right? Ephemeral. 18. Look at everything that exists and observe that it is already in dissolution and in change, and as it were purification or dispersion, or that everything is so constituted by nature as to die. Perspective, point of view. 19. Consider what men are when they are eating, sleeping, generating, easing themselves, and so forth. And then, what kind of men they are when they are imperious and arrogant and angry and scolding from their elevated place. But a short time ago, to how many they were slaves, and for what things, and after a little time consider in what condition they will be. So Jimmy titled this Compare and Contrast. Think about what people do. There used to be a saying, we all put our pants on the same way. That was, right? No matter what your status, social status, we all put our pants on the same way. And that's what Marcus Aurelius is saying. Think about men, women, what they are eating, when they are eating, when they're doing these things. The Roman poet Ovid, who wrote beautiful poetry, love stories, and maybe we should read Ovid. Maybe I did read Ovid. I don't know when you're going to be able to see what I'm reading now. But he wrote, and we've talked about love and passion being the most powerful emotions, right? You understand that, right? So when you love someone, you don't think about when they are eating or sleeping or easing themselves. You don't think about your loved one easing themselves. But Ovid wrote a poem once that if you're hopelessly in love, the fastest way to end your hopelessness, just get out of love, is to see your loved one on a toilet. I'm sorry. Which is an interesting concept. I don't know. I'm just saying. Number 20. That is for the good of each thing which the universal nature brings to each. And it is for its good at the time when nature brings it. Things happen for a reason. Do you believe that? Do you believe whatever's good happens, it happens when it's time to happen? I might tell a story before this is over about my experience. Number 21. The earth loves the shower, and the solemn ether loves. And the universe loves to make whatever is about to be. The earth loves the shower, likes the rain, and the solemn ether loves, and the universe loves to make whatever is about to be. And I say then to the universe that I love as thou lovest. And it is not this too said, that this or that loves to be produced. Number 1. These are the words from Euripides, pardon me. They are cited by Aristotle in his Ethic. Okay, it was a fashion of the Stoics to work on the meanings of words. Jimmy drew an arrow here because this is important. The meaning of words to the Stoic was very important. Why? Because Aristotle is the father who said, define your terms. Socrates actually did that. Socrates taught Plato. Plato taught Aristotle. Aristotle taught all of us. And so when you think about this, that the definition of terms is so important, right? So he puts in here, Antonius here takes the verb loves, which he also has a sentence, wont, uses, and the like. And he finds in the common language of mankind a philosophical truth. And most great truths are expressed in the common language of life. Some understand them, but most people utter them without knowing how much they mean. I don't know if that applies, but I do know that defining your terms is very, very important. And that's what he may be trying to do here. The universe loves to make whatever is about to be. Remember, change, blah, 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 blah. I say, Marcus says, to the universe, I love as thou lovest. I love as thou lovest. I love as you love. And is not this too said that this or that loves to be produced? So he's just saying, is love like loving a hamburger? I don't know. What is love? What is love? 22. Either thou livest here and hast already accustomed thyself to it, or thou art going away, and this was thy own will, or thou art dying and hast discharged thy duty. But besides these things, there's nothing. So be of good cheer. Used to be that song, don't worry, be happy. Remember that song? I'm not going to sing it. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Be happy. So either you live here and you're used to it, or you're going away through your own choice, or you're dying and you discharged your duty. You did your duty, right? But besides these three things, there's really nothing. So cheer up. Oh, that's pretty gruesome, huh? What about enjoying a baseball game? Number 23, let this always be plain to thee, that this piece of land is like any other, and that all things here are the same with things on the top of a mountain, or on a seashore, or wherever thou choosest to be. For you will find just what Plato says, dwelling within the walls of a city, as in a shepherd's fold on a mountain. Then George has a footnote here, Plato, but compare the original with the use that Antonius. If you want to take it a little deeper, you can read Plato. Relativity. Everything's relative. 24. What is my ruling faculty now to me? And of what nature am I now making it? And for what purpose am I now using it? Is it void of understanding? Is it loosed and rent asunder from social life? Is it melted into and mixed in with the poor flesh so as to move together with it? He's questioning now. The ruling faculty is reason, right? What am I doing with my reason? What purpose am I using it for? Is it void? Did I lose my reason? Is it that did I forget that I'm here? I'm a social animal. Number 25. He who flies from his master is a runaway, but the law is master. So he who breaks the law is a runaway. And he also who is grieved or angry or afraid is dissatisfied because something has been or is or shall be of the things which are appointed to him who rules all things. And he is law and assigns to every man what is fit. He then who fears or is grieved or is angry is a runaway. Very interesting passage, right? The law. In the Island of the Lost Souls with Charlton Heston. Great movie, great old movie. It was remade with Burt Lancaster, remade with Marlon Brando. See the original with Charles Lawton. It's where he would take animals and try to turn them into men. He was an experimenter. So he would capture animals and try to turn them into human beings. Excellent, excellent science fiction. I think H.G. Wells wrote it. I'll have to double check that. But in any case, this runaway thought here, the law. What is the law? The law. He who breaks the law is a runaway. He who runs from his master is a runaway. And then he who leaves the law, who breaks the law, is a runaway. And in the scene of the Island of the Lost Souls, Charles Lawton is on the mountain with all the half men, half women that he made from beasts. And he's got a bullwhip in his hand and whoosh, what is the law? And Bela Lugosi, who plays one of the half humans, is on the island below, is on the beach below where he's below Charles Lawton. And so Charles Lawton goes, whoosh, what is the law? And Bela Lugosi, thou shalt not kill. And he goes, whoosh, what is the law? Thou shalt not, and whoosh, what is the law? And he says another thing, thou shalt not, And then Bela Lugosi looks at the camera and he goes, are we not men? And he's all hairy, right? He's like a half animal. It's a good story because they they try to be men, but they break form, and one of them kills someone. It's an interesting story. In this case, what Marcus is telling us is that you run away from it. When you break the law, when you break with who you are. When you violate your soul, when you violate you, you're a runaway. I think that's a great thought. Of course, you have to know who you are in order to know if you're running away from yourself, right? Introspection. A man deposits seed in the womb and goes away, and then another cause takes it and labors on it and makes a child. And what a thing from such a material. And again, the child passes food down through the throat. And then another cause, I want you to go back for a moment and look at the word cause. Words are important. We just talked about that. So a man deposits a seed in a womb and goes away. And then another cause takes it, labors, and makes a child. What a thing and he goes, what a thing from such material. And again, the child passes food down through the throat, and then another cause takes what? The child, and makes perception, motion, and in fine, life and strength and other things. And how many and how strange. Observe then the things which are produced in such a hidden way, these hidden causes, and see the power, just as we see the power which carries things downward and upward with the eyes, but still no less plainly. Hidden causes. Beautifully written. Beautifully written. We can't understand everything. Oh, I know how babies are born. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about just the hidden causes of things around us that we don't know. Beautiful. Number 27. Constantly consider how all things such as they are now in time past also were, and consider that they will be the same again. This is kind of like Eastern philosophy things, right? All things, they never die. They just change shape, right? And place before thy eyes entire dramas and stages of the same form, whatever thou hast learned from thy experience or from older history. For example, the whole court of Hadrianus, and the whole court of Antonius, and the whole court of Philippius, Alexander, Croesus, and for all those were such dramas as we see now, only with different actors. Jimmy titled this "Always Be Thinking." There's nothing new under the sun. It's all, these things have happened before. That doesn't mean they're the same thing. They're the same person, or they've transmigrated into something else. Your soul becomes a bee, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're just talking, consider how all things as they are now in time past also were. Men and women, soul inside your head. Technology marches on, but we haven't changed that much, have we? We're greedy, we're happy, we're sad, right? We what? We have goals, we don't have goals, we drift through life. That's what he's talking about. 28. Imagine every man who is grieved at anything or discontented to be like a pig, which is sacrificed and kicks and screams. Like this pig also is he who on his bed in silence laments the bonds in which we are held. And consider that only to the rational animal is it given to follow voluntarily what happens, but simply to follow is a necessity imposed by all. We're all going to die. Imagine every man who's grieved at anything. If you're sad about anything, your child dying, you lost your wife, whatever you're grieving, your father, or you're discontented, or if you're just discontented, Jesus, the life sucks, anything like that. Just, he's saying imagine. Now, I know he doesn't like the imagination, he doesn't like opinions, but he's telling himself here, he's writing in this meditation to imagine that. And imagine him to be what? Like a pig who is sacrificed, kicking and screaming. I don't know if you've ever seen the slaughter of a pig. And like this pig is so he's saying if you're doing this, you're like a pig, moaning and groaning and screaming and kicking. And like this pig is he who on his bed in silence laments the bonds in which he is held. Like you're in bed and you're sick or whatever. Consider that only to the rational animal is it given to follow voluntarily what happens. You only know you're going to die if you're a rational animal. This is a very important thought. You only know you're going to die if you're a rational animal. A lion does not know it's going to die. It dies. It may feel death coming upon him, weaker, but he doesn't think about it when he's killing a beast to eat. Well, he's a strong lion. Well, how do you know that, Jimmy? Well, lions don't talk, do they? They just act according to their nature. And if you were to try to talk to a lion, I would speculate he'd bite your head off. So I'm just saying the rational part, that's what Marcus is talking about all the time with the reason, the rational part of us. That's really that contemplation, that thoughtfulness that we have. It's a blessing and it's a curse. And his stoicism is trying to just say, shut up. Just accept, just do things. Severely on all occasions, severally on the occasion of everything that thou doest. Pause and ask yourself if death is a dreadful thing because it deprives thee of this. So Jimmy titled this value. You get in the car and you start driving. Ask yourself if death is a dreadful thing because it deprives me of driving a car. Right? You're on the golf course. Is death a dreadful thing because it deprives me of golfing? Some people would say, of course it is. That's not what he's saying here. He's talking about valuing, putting a value on things compared to death. Do you think about that? I don't want to think about it, Jimmy. No one does. But I assure you, if you think about it when you first wake up, that this may be your last day, it changes your point of view completely. It gives you a whole breath of fresh air and an appreciation of everything around you. That's what this guy's talking about. That's what he's trying to understand. Well, Jimmy, I'm going to live forever. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Number 30. When thou art offended at any man's fault, forthwith turn to thyself and reflect in what like manner do you err yourself. Remember, he's the emperor, he's talking to himself, and he's basically saying, so when you're offended at any man's fault, look at yourself. Look at yourself. That's the title of this passage. Look at yourself. For example, in thinking that money is a good thing, or pleasure, or a bit of reputation and the like. So if you think that, right? So when you're offended at anyone's fault, look at yourself. For example, if you think money is a good thing, look at yourself. For by attending to this, thou wilt quickly forget thy anger. If this consideration is also added, that the man is compelled, the man in front of you that you think is at fault, for what else could he do? He was compelled to do that. Look at yourself. And if thou art able, take away from him the compulsion. Talk to him. Help him find the error of his ways by looking at your own self. They're very important. I'm drawing an arrow. I know, some of you are saying, you're drawing arrows everywhere, Jimmy. You're getting carried away. Perhaps. But this is important. I grew up keeping a journal, and one of the things, the repetitional themes of my journal is what's wrong with me. I said, there may be something wrong with me now. You don't know. How do I know? In any case, look at yourself. Or when you see someone, there go you, but the grace of God. You don't know. How can you know? 31. When thou hast seen Stratton here, nothing is known of these people, nor I believe of any of these people. Euphrates is honorably mentioned by Epictetus. Pliny, a famous Roman historian, speaks very highly of him. He obtained permission of the Emperor Hadrian to drink poison because he was old and in bad health. This is interesting. Suicide is an interesting concept in Rome, right? Suicide runs through cultures. Japanese have it, when shame is too great, they have to commit suicide. And here, this guy asked, to drink poison because he was old and in bad health. He didn't want to suffer. But he asked permission. Sorry. Suicide is never good, ladies and gentlemen. That's Jimmy's belief, but whatever. We're not here to talk about my beliefs, your beliefs. We're here to understand his beliefs. Marcus, taking a sip of coffee. So he's saying, think about these people. Okay? Think about these people. And in the case of everyone, do in a like manner. Then let this thought be in thy mind. Where then are those men? So when you think about these, maybe think about the people in your life that depending on how long you've lived, and ask yourself, where are these people now? Nowhere, or nobody knows where, right? I was talking to a young man the other day, and he said he can't wait. He wants, he can't wait to go to heaven. I said, I'm in heaven. And he looked at me very strangely because it's where I live. I consider myself, wherever I live, I'm in heaven because I'm alive. For thus continuously thou wilt look at human things as smoke and nothing at all. Especially if thou reflectest, if you reflect at the same time that what has once changed will never exist again in an infinite duration of time. But thou, in what a brief space of time is thy existence? And why art thou not content to pass through this short time in an orderly way? Isn't this interesting? Why aren't you happy to just pay, in this short time you're here, do it in an orderly way? What matter and opportunity art thou avoiding? And for what else are all these things except exercises for your reason? And when it is viewed carefully by I have to stop there for a minute, because as you think about what's going on in the world, when you think about what's going on in the world, taking these types of meditations and pulling yourself away from what's happening in the world is very important. Because if more people did that, if more people thought this one thought, how come you're not content to pass through this short time in an orderly way? And yet there's crime, there's all sorts of crap going on, right? If people just learn this, just to pass your time in an orderly way, understand what reason is, what it means to be a rational animal, not just an animal, a rational animal. That's an adjective modifying the word animal. For what else are all these things except exercises for your reason? When it is viewed carefully and by examination into their nature, the things which happen in life. Persevere then, persevere, until thou shalt have made these things thy own. As the stomach, which is strengthened, makes all things its own, as the blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Isn't that persevere, persevere. 32. Let it not be in any man's power to say truly of you that thou art not simple or that thou art not good, but let him be a liar, whoever shall think anything of this kind about you. And this is altogether in your power. For who is he that shall hinder thee from being good and simple? Very important. This is all in your power, and it's not what people think of you. It's in your power to determine who you are. For who is he that should hinder you from being good and simple? Do thou only determine to live no longer unless thou shalt be such. Be what? Simple and good. Simple and good. Right? For neither does reason allow if thou art not such. Do not Do thou only determine to live no longer unless thou shalt be such. For neither goodness nor simpleness does reason allow if thou art not such. Reason will allow. There's a footnote here, and he's telling you to compare that. Beautiful. 33. What is it that which as to this material can be done or said in a way most conformable to reason? For whatever this may be, it is in thy power to do it, or to say it, or to not make excuses that thou art hindered. Thou wilt not cease to lament until thy mind is in such a condition that what luxury is to those who enjoy pleasure, such shall be to thee, in that matter which is subjected and presented to thee, the doing of the things which are conformable to a man's constitution. For a man ought to consider as an enjoyment everything which it is in his power to do according to his own nature. And it is in his power everywhere. Now, it is not given to a cylinder to move everywhere by its own motion, nor yet to water, nor to fire, nor to anything else which is governed by nature or an irrational soul. For the things which check them and stand in the way are many. But intelligence and reason are able to go through everything that opposes them, and in such a manner as they are formed by nature and as they choose. So place before thy eyes this faculty, which the reason will be carried through all things, as fire is carried upwards, as a stone downwards, as a cylinder down an inclined surface, and seek for nothing further. For all other obstacles either affect the body only, which is a dead thing, or expect through opinion and the yielding of reason itself. They do not crush, nor do they harm any kind. For if they did harm, he who felt it would immediately become bad. Now, in the case of all things which have a certain constitution, whatever harm may happen to any of them, that which is so affected becomes consequently worse. But in the like case, a man becomes both better, if one may say so, and more worthy of praise by making a right use of these accidents. And finally, remember that nothing harms him who is really a citizen, which does not harm the state, nor yet does anything harm the state, which does not harm the law. And of these things which are called misfortunes, not one harms the law. What then does not harm the law does not harm either the state or the citizen. You're going to have to really take this number 33 apart. We're not going to do it now. We'll do it later. I would reread it if I were you. 34. To him who is penetrated by true principles, even the briefest precept is sufficient, and any common precept to remind him that he should be free from grief and fear. For example, leaves such as the wind scatters on the ground, so is the race of men. He's quoting Homer, famous poet, the Iliad and Odyssey. Leaves also are thy children, and leaves too are they who cry out as if they were worthy of credit and bestow their praise, or on the contrary, curse, or secretly blame and sneer. And leaves, in a like manner, are those who shall receive and transmit a man's fame to aftertimes. For all things, as these, quote, are produced in the season of spring, as the poet says, and then the wind casts them down. Then the forest produces other leaves in their places. But a brief existence is common to all things. And yet, thou avoidest and pursuest all things as if you were going to be eternal. A little time, and thou shalt close thy eyes, and him who has attended thee to thy grave, and another soon will lament. Beautiful. The leaves of life. Life is like leaves. Isn't this unbelievable? 35. The healthy eye should see all visible things and not to say, "Oh, I wish for green things," for this is the condition of a diseased eye. In other words, look at things for what they are, not what you want them to be. And the healthy hearing and smelling ought to be ready to perceive all that can be heard and smelled. And the healthy stomach should be with respect to all food, just like a mill with respect to all things which it is formed to grind. And accordingly, the healthy understanding ought to be prepared for everything which happens. But that which says, "Let my dear children live, and let all men praise whatever I may do," well, that's an eye which seeks for green things, or teeth which seek for soft things. Isn't that great? Quit wishing for stuff that's not there. 36. There is no man so fortunate that there shall not be by him when he is dying some who are pleased with what is going to happen. George's footnote says, he affirms in other places death is no evil, but he must mean others may call it an evil. He means only what is going to happen. I don't know. I just read that sentence and I don't see that. George must be way smarter than me, but let's go back because I don't believe George that he's saying this, that he means only what is going to happen. Death is going to happen. That's not what he says here. There is no man so fortunate that there shall not be by him when he's dying some who are pleased with what is going to happen. I think he's saying that regardless of who the hell you are, when you're dying, there are some people who are going to say, "Thank God he's dying," right? That's what he's saying. Suppose that he was a good and wise man. Will there not be the same someone who says to himself, "Let us at last breathe freely, being relieved from this schoolmaster. Oh, Jesus, he is a taskmaster." Don't forget, he's talking to himself. He's the emperor. It is true that he was harsh to none of us, but I perceive that he tacitly condemns us. This is what is said of a good man. But in our own case, how many other things are there for which there are many who wish to get rid of us? Thou wilt consider this, then. When thou art dying, and thou wilt depart more contentedly by reflecting this way, thus, I am going away from such a life in which even my associates, in behalf of whom I have striven so much, prayed and cared themselves wish me to depart, hoping perchance to get some little advantage by it. See, you're gonna leave life a little better if you think like this, that there's some people around you, including family members perhaps, that are going to say, "Well, it's good, he's gone." Why then should a man cling to a longer stay? Do not, however, for this reason go away less kindly disposed to them. So what? They don't want you, But preserving thy own character and friendly and benevolent and mild, and on the other hand, not as if thou wert torn away, but as when a man dies a quiet death, the poor soul is easily separated from the body. Such also ought thy departure from men to be, for nature united thee to them and associated thee. Nature brought you together with these people who are now kind of glad you're gone. But does she now dissolve that union? There's the question. Well, I'm separated from my kinsmen, not, however, dragged, resisting but without compulsion. For this too is one of the things according to nature. Die with dignity. 37. Accustom thyself as much as possible on the occasion of anything being done by any person to inquire with thyself. So remember, he's the emperor. Just get used to people asking you for stuff. For what object is this man doing this? So ask yourself, what object is this guy doing this for? But begin with yourself, thyself, and examine thyself first. What's the motive? Why is this guy asking me this? Begin with yourself. Why do I want him to ask me this? Number 38. Remember that this which pulls the strings is the thing which is hidden within. This is the power of persuasion. This is life. This is one, many, so say, is man. In contemplating yourself, never include the vessel, the body, which surrounds thee, and these instruments which are attached about it. For they are like to an axe, differing only in this, that they grow to the body, your arms, your legs. For indeed, there is no such more use in these parts without the cause, which moves and checks them, than in the weaver's shuttle, and the writer's pen, and the driver's whip. And then he says, he refers to the philosophy he wrote in the beginning of the book. I put a question mark here because I want you to reread this. Remember that which pulls, this which pulls the strings. What's pulling your strings? It's the thing hidden within. What is that? Your soul. This thing, your soul, is the power of persuasion. This is life. This is one of many that say is man. It's your rationality. Your rationality. You've been reading with Jimmy. This is Jimmy. We've been reading Marcus Aurelius. This is meditation number 10. There's 2 more. Stick with me, ladies and gentlemen. 2 more. This is number 10. Email me, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Questions, comments. Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. And be sure to visit and read the other classics on the website, Reading with Jimmy. We really appreciate your time. We hope you're finding this as beneficial as we do. And certainly in this day and age, when no one's reading classics anymore. I had a friend tell me the other day that his sons were now reading totally on a computer. They're not using books. And I said, what? He says, I knew you wouldn't like this, Jimmy. He says, because what they're doing on the computer is they're actually timing the young men. These are young men. And they're kids. They're just kids, like, I don't know, 6th, 5th grade. But the computer is timing their reading. You can't do that. Well, Jimmy, I want to be a speed reader. Well, then you're going to lose appreciation. That's not why we're here. We're not here to speed read. We're here to read. Language charged with meaning and appreciation. You understand? This is not a speed reading course. This is a comprehensive appreciation course. Appreciation course. It's not even a course. We're having fun, aren't we? Come on. Admit it. Reading with Jimmy. Thanks for visiting. Have a great day. Remember to think.